In this exercise, we're going to perform some date calculations. We'll import a text file into Excel, and we'll also use conditional formatting to highlight numbers for us to make it a little easier to make sense of a large table of numbers. So to start off with, it asks us to download a file, Dawson City Breakup History.txt, a text file, and if we were to download it and open it, we would see this. It's just two columns of numbers. It's text delimited. If it was comma separated values, we would see comma between the two columns. If it was tab delimited, we would see a tab character, but this one is clearly just lined up manually somehow. And it has two columns, one which we learned is a year, and the other is the day of the year that the ice broke up in Dawson City, going all the way back to 1900. So we start off, if we double click, it'll just open up a notepad, so that doesn't work. We need to start off in Excel with no other worksheets open. And we say File Open, and we go looking for the file. Now it's on my desktop, but I don't see it there, and that's because I always have to choose all files. By default, Excel will only look for Excel files. It's not an Excel file, it's a text file. So there it is. We open it up, and because it's a text file, we're walked through the text import wizard. And it guesses it delimited, which is wrong. In this case, it's fixed width. The fields are aligned in columns with spaces between each field, and that's what we see here. We click Next, and it guesses at where one column ends, and the next one begins. It's not really important where the line is. And in our case, we never have to do anything on the third step of the wizard. The only time you really generally have to use this is when you have a date format that is packed together into 6 or digits or something, and you have to figure out which is the year, which is the month, which is the day. Here are all the possibilities. But we can ignore that and just say Finish. We've imported it now. Notice we have 1900 in cell A1 and 129 in cell B1. If something went wrong at this point, we just close it down and re-import. We can always do that. But there's one very important step that we always have to do whenever we import a text file of any format into Excel, and that's to save it as an Excel file. Because right now, if you look at the top, it's still a text file, meaning that as I do formulas and conditional formatting, all the other things I'm going to do here, that won't save in a text file format. Now I will get a warning later, but it's one of those warnings that's easy to skip. So we want to make sure that as soon as we import it, the first thing we do is we say File, Save As. And again, we want the Save As Type box here, and we want the very first entry. We may have to scroll up to the top. And the very first entry will always be Microsoft Excel workbook format, star.xls, and I'll save it. Now it'll be called Dawson City Breakup History.xls. As soon as I do that, it is now a spreadsheet, and I can continue on. It asks us to insert column titles, so I'm going to insert a row ahead of these of the data. So I'll say Insert, just push everything down, and ask for year and Julian date, which is the day of the year. We're used to day of the month. This is the Julian date is the day of the year, and I can auto size those columns to get them just the right width. And so, like I said before, in 1900, the ice broke up in Dawson City and on the 129th day of the year. And our goal here is to find out, well, what is the 129th day? Is that in March, April, May, and which day of the month, and which month? So we're going to calculate that. First, we're going to do sort of an approximation, and then we'll try a little trick to get it more exact. So we're going to add a new column called Calculated Date. And just to start off, I'm going to format this column. So I'm going to select the entire column by right-clicking on the column heading letter there. Format cells, and I'm going to choose a date format. It's under number because dates are numbers. I'm going to choose date, and I'm going to pick this one, sort of a long date format, but without the day of the week. That's fine. And I'll say OK. That whole column now, if I type a number in it, such as 32, it will be formatted as a date. Number 1 is January 1st, 1900. Number 2 would be January 2nd, 1900. 32, since there are 31 days in January, would be February 1st, 1900. But what I really want to calculate is what's the 129th day of 1900. Well, I can try just by putting in 129. There we go, May 8th, 1900. That works great for that first row. It doesn't work so well for the second row. I know the ice broke up on the 134th day of 1901, And if I type in 134, that's going to be 134 days after January 1st, 1900, which is May 13th, 1900. We always want to see 1901 over here for the row 1901, 1902 for row 1902, and so forth. So my formula is not right. By just typing in 134, that's not going to work. And I want a formula that's going to work all the way down if I just autofill, but we'll try and come up with a way of doing that. So let me think about this. Since 1900, to get to 1901, a whole year has passed, 365 days. So I can say, instead of whatever I typed in here, just delete that, I'll say, well, it's 365, that's all of 1900, plus what I have in here, column in cell B3. And of course, what did I forget? I forgot my equal sign. So let's change that formula. If I forget the equal sign, it thinks it's a label. So 365 plus the 134. Ah, now I'm on to something. I've got May 13th, 1901. That was the 134th day of 1901. 1902, well, it would be 2 years have passed. So I'll say equals 2 times 365 plus whatever number I have in column B. May 10th, 1902. So it's all about the same day for 1900 through 1901 through 1902. And I would continue on. This would be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. But of course, I don't want to keep typing 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, because I won't be able to autofill down. I want a formula that always works. But I notice when I say 3 times for 1903, 4 times for 1904, 5 times for 1905, I see a pattern. Ah, I want to multiply 365 by whatever the year is, minus 1900. So to take 1903 down to just 3, I would subtract 1900. So let's try that one. I'll have a formula here. So I'll take whatever's in column A, A5 in this case, minus 1900. So that will give me 3. And I'll just multiply that by 365, but I'll be fancy and say 365.25 to account for those leap years. It's not going to be exact, but it'll get me a little bit closer. Plus, that's how many years have elapsed, plus 133 days in 1903. If I use that formula, suddenly I get, notice I can use this formula for any row because it uses a cell in column A and a cell in column B, and everything else is fixed. Doesn't change from row to row. So this formula I can autofill up. Let's just see if it works. Ah, May 8th. So I autofilled up. So now all these cells use the same formula. And I'll autofill down as well, all the way to year 2006. There we go. May 10th, 2006, according to this. Now it does tell us, just to give us a way of checking, that in May 2nd of 1979, the ice broke up May 2nd of 1979. I have May 1st. I'm off by a day. And May 9th in 1987. I'm off by a day again. So it looks like my formula, for whatever reason, I suspect something to do with leap years, is off by 1. So what I'm going to do is just add a fudge to my formula. I'll start at the top. I could start anywhere, but it's easiest to start at the top. And I'll just add in 1. I'll take that formula and autofill it all the way down 2006 again. And now I'll check again. May 2nd, 1979. Yep. May 9th, 1987. Correct. All right. I'm not really 100% sure because I haven't done very fancy calculations here for leap years and the like, but it seems to be at least giving me something. Now I'll verify it using another calculation that will let Excel figure out all the leap years and complexity of dates. And so this time we'll use the date function. It mentions the, we'll call this one actual date. This column actual date, and it mentions that we use the date function. So equals date, open parentheses. The date takes the year, the month, and the day as 3 arguments. Well, the year is easy enough, 1900. Then it suggests let's always use January for the month, and the month is numbered 1 through 12. So comma 1 would give me January. I'm always going to use January in my formula. And then the day of the month. Well, here we're going to cheat, and I'm going to say the 129th day of January by using B2, whatever's in column B there. That would be cheating, usually, but it turns out Excel doesn't mind. It still can figure it out that that is May 9th, 1900. Notice it's using its own format, so I'll format column D. Format cells, choose date, and I'll choose the same format I used before, this one here. May 9th, 1900. May 8th, 1900. Oh, it's off by 1. Why could that be? Let's just copy it down a little bit, and we'll see. Not wide enough. We'll see. May 14th, that's the same. May 13th, that's May 11th, 13th, that's the same. Oh, we're off by 1. The same, off by 1. What could those off by 1s be? Well, they look very suspiciously like their leap years are the problem. So I'm going to trust that my calculation over here was probably wrong for leap years. This one is probably right for leap years. 1900, by the way, I don't believe was a leap year because it's divisible by 100 and not divisible by 400. Leap years get a little bit complicated. All right, so I think that's right, and it looks like 3 out of 4 times our calculated date was actually right. But the actual date uses Excel's own date function smarts to figure out what's a leap year, what isn't. So there's 2 date functions. Remember, it's just calculating a number and then formatting it as a date. If you're doing the date function, Excel will automatically think you're doing dates and do it for you. The last part is to apply conditional formatting to the Julian date format. So I'm going to select everything. So Shift-Control down arrow will select everything from B2 in that case right through B108 because I want to select that data and then apply some rules that will format it. Conditional formatting. And it says if the breakup date is on the 135th day or later, so if that is 135 or higher, so I'll say if the cell value is greater than or equal to 135, that means it's a cold year. The ice broke up late that year, so we'll color that cell blue in some way. So I'll change the pattern and I'll make it a bluish color there in the background. I'll add another rule. It says if the breakup date is before the 125th day, so less than the 125th day. Notice we're being careful with less than or less than or equal to. Same, this is greater than or equal to because it said 135th or after. This said before the 125th, so less than. We want to color, that was a warm year, so we'll color the background an orange color. Oh, that's kind of ugly. That's maybe better, a little peach color. That was a warm year. The ice broke up early, and we'll color everything else green. Well, everything else I could say between 135 and 125 perhaps, or the other way around. Or I could just say, I could just be lazy, and I could just say greater than 0. It's always going to be greater than 0 because we can't break up before the beginning of the year. And remember that conditional formatting picks the first rule that is true. So if either of these are true, it's going to pick blue or orange. But if neither of them are true, and the only way that could happen really is if it's less than 135 or greater than or equal to 125, but I don't have to worry about that. I'll just say greater than 0, which is everything else, and it'll color it green. So that sort of automatically takes care of it. I can be lazy, but the other way works as well. And I'll say OK, and now we get a visual representation of green tends to be sort of average years, orange are the warm years, blue are the cold years. And as we scroll forward into the future, we start seeing, starting in the 70s, we start seeing a lot more warm years. Now we'll need a chart to actually see if the trend holds, but it does mention in the assignment that we do have a trend. Here's a trend from the taiga.net site. Which collected the original data, and here are all the blue diamonds are the breakup days. Here's a very cold year, for instance, when it broke up very late. Here are warm years, but you'll notice that they applied a linear trend. Not that climate is necessarily behaves linearly, but overall it seems to be getting warmer, which could be trouble for us. And that's the end of the exercise.